Hello, I'm Casey Aiken, and this is 21 This Week. Coming up next, American Legion Bridge meltdown. Is it time to build another bridge? Will continued attacks by the County Council on the Montgomery County Police turn Montgomery County into a lawless wasteland like Baltimore City? And countdown to sine die in the General Assembly. Stay tuned. Our panel of insiders will give you the story behind the story. We're joined by the past president of Progressive Maryland, Elbridge James, Secretary of the Maryland Republican Central Committee, Mark Uncapher, Maryland political consultant Sean Winkler, and education activist Cynthia Rubenstein. Stay tuned for these stories and more on the next 21 This Week. As we all know, traffic on the interstate beltway that runs through the bottom part of Montgomery County is challenging. On a good day, it's awful. On a bad day, it's impossible. Last week only underscores the region's dependency on inadequate roadways. Elbridge, why is it that the council won't even study the need for an outer crossing bridge between Montgomery County and Loudoun County? One tanker truck destroyed the entire system for hours.
One oversized tanker truck. It's more than just roads. It's in fact how we've legislated bigger and better on our national highways, and they have consequences. I'm not denying that the traffic is terrible and there probably needs to be some solutions, but I'm not going to jump just to say we need another outer beltway.
Elbridge, we are the nation's capital. It's not like we're going to shrink. We're not like some hick town in the middle of Kansas that's going to blow away in the dust. People are going to come to Montgomery County because we're right next to the nation's capital. We need better roads.
If that's the nation's capital, then we need the federal government and the state government to come in with Montgomery County, provide the resources and the opportunity to get it done.
Why will our county keep fighting it? Why do they keep fighting it?
Because you want the county to pay for it.
We don't want the county. Mark, as Elbridge suggested, why can't the state? Why can't the federal government? You know who should be leading this charge is David Trone, the newly elected congressman from District 6. This would be going through his district. We need a bridge. Why won't he champion it? As a businessman, he should know we need good transportation.
Well, I think we need all the advocates we can get. I'll tell you, I spent a lot of time in Virginia, and they think, the transportation people over there think Maryland is nuts for not going forward with this. But Elbridge, I've got a proposal for you for a location for the bridge. What we suggest doing it is running it from 370 right through the Trump National Golf Course on the Virginia side. That way you got a nice connection, BWI to Dulles Airport. What do you say?
I'll go for that.
I'll go for that. Let's not, we've batted this issue around enough times. I mean, Rich Parsons has been on the show. He's a transportation expert. He can tell you that you don't have to go through the ag reserve to build this roadway. So what I think is an absence of leadership on the part of Montgomery County politicians. Last year at the Council of Governments, they refused to even study the need. Now, this is a 30-year project. This isn't something that's going to happen tomorrow. They would refuse to even study the need. That's an absence of leadership on their part. They should all be fired. I'm sick of these guys.
But also that's an absence of advocates taking the issue to the public. I'm sorry. Government does not move unless the public demands it. We wouldn't have a subway system. We wouldn't have roadways if these clowns were in charge in the 1960s when the master plan was put into place. These guys are reprehensible. The master plan was put in place because the public demanded it. And let the public demand this also.
And you don't think somebody who had to sit, I had people calling me from Virginia saying they were going to go watch a movie because they knew they couldn't get home till midnight because the bridges were closed.
Because of the oversized trucks.
It took 3 hours.
Oversized trucks
it took 3 hours
oversized
to go from
trucks are part of the problem. There's nothing but building roads
if you're going the other
oversized trucks are part of the problem.
It's not the trucks. It's the number of cars. It's the number of people.
The trucks are the ones that cause the problem.
But I do think a study would breed public outreach. It wasn't long ago we saw a Second Bay Bridge span was brought up to public study, and MTA and others released an entire map showing the potential spans a study is, of course, going to engage the public around options.
Right, and as part of those options, the only thing I've heard so far is about roadways, cars. We haven't said the T word yet, which is transit. The other thing that we have to consider is if you are looking 30 years out and you're looking at aging baby boomers who are not going to be in the workforce, and you're looking at younger generations who don't even buy cars, you have to consider what what mobility looks like with the future workforce.
Cynthia,
you're absolutely right, Cynthia.
That has to be factored in.
We need a subway system that goes all around the circumference of the beltway or outer beltway, because what we have now is insufficient. I mean, if you have to go...
We're getting the purple line, so that's one good step towards that.
The purple line. You know, those light rail things, people hate those things. They don't even work.
Yes, they work. They're all over Europe, and they work well.
Oh, they work in Europe.
They also work in Kansas City and Dallas and other places as well.
Sean.
But
yes.
Europe's not the best comparison.
Okay. Thank you, Sean.
All right. Thank you for Kansas City, Sean.
You made my point, Sean. You got the last word. Now we're on to the next topic. This week, the Montgomery County Police issued a follow-up report on a law enforcement involved shooting involving a county policeman and a Silver Spring man. The internal investigation came to the same conclusion as did an external review done by Howard County, that it was a justified use of force. Cynthia, Police Chief Tom Manger's report to County Executive Mark Elbridge immediately came under attack by Councilman Will Jawando, even though it contains significantly more details about the incident than the Howard County report. Is there a lack of transparency, or is Jawando just showboating?
He is not showboating. There are critical questions that he asked after the report was released. And one of the issues with this case is that the officer's camera was not activated as he made the decision to pursue and interact with this individual. And so we will never know, because that camera was not activated earlier, why he decided to interact, what the so-called suspicious activity was that he observed that made him want to follow and interact with this man. I'm going to go to
Mark. Mark, there's a recent study just released that says that officer cameras aren't any more conclusive than their previous testimony.
Well, but it's interesting. In this particular case, you've got the camera, you've got the footage of the victim or the perpetrator, depending on your perspective, on top of the police officer hitting him in the head. So here you have the camera providing the evidence that frankly substantiates the fact that the police officer was under attack, and yet the criticism of the police officer is still underway. Now, I'm not sure what the camera on does in the situation of why did the police officer come up to somebody. Frankly, what really is determinative is the fact that this person attacked the police officer.
I want to go to Sean on this. Sean, here's a situation where we have seen what's happened in Baltimore, where the police are under attack, and how they respond is by not doing their job. They do a slow roll on this. They stop enforcement. What that does, it produces more crime and more of a neighborhood that you don't want to live in. Is that what we're expecting if Will Jawando and the rest of the council keeps attacking our police force?
Well, I think we need to do our best to take the politics out of this, because right now the police forces in communities of color, communities of lower socioeconomic status, are not communicating and engaging effectively. And that's what we need to kind of move forward.
But who says that? I mean, honestly, we have the best police force in the entire region. We've had it for years. This has been a police force that's been on the leading edge of community policing.
And that view is not shared in every community in Montgomery County, including the one in which Mr. White lost his life.
Is that just because you have activists telling you how bad it is and how terrible it is? Aren't they stirring up resentment against the police without any evidence?
They're bringing to light what the concerns of that community are. I can tell you for a fact, having met with Police Chief Manger, we encouraged him to give a broader report than what was shown by Howard County. We understand that. But also one of our complaints where you have communities who don't feel they feel disenfranchised. They don't feel included. And so you're going to have this pushback. But it's only pushback that both parties, hold on a second, that both parties can learn from and do better. Montgomery County will never turn into Baltimore City. Clearly we won't turn. And Baltimore City had a lot of corruption going down, which created imbalances, which creates the state that we have now. Montgomery County is not that.
Not yet. Elbridge, I have to tell you, you keep attacking the police force, and you keep suggesting that they are the enemy and not there to serve the public, and you will end up just like
Not
Baltimore
everyone
City.
is attacking the police force, and in fact, friends of
We have
the
a whole
friends of the
new
county
slate
council,
of councilmen
friends of the
on
county
this council, led by Will Jawando,
friends
who
of the
are
county
eager to do
council
this.
are-
No,
are
no, no.
saying
They
that
are
They are taking a
eager
national. They're taking a national
for
issue and trying to
independence.
superimpose it on a quality police force that doesn't deserve it.
You can have a quality police force that still needs some improvement in order to completely engender trust with all communities. And an independent body who can examine what happened would be a step forward
And
for
a quality
both
police
sides.
force can take the heat.
And they
You know,
can
if
take
they
the
had
heat.
something to hide, then we'll
Right.
find out about it. And if they don't, then the
Mark,
dogs will
you
lie.
got 10 seconds. Wrap it up.
Let's look at the facts of this particular case. They don't support the allegations that are being made.
Thanks, Mark. All right. This is a really terrible story, and it's been a terrible story for 6 months, ever since Halloween night when a rape of 4 students at Damascus High School occurred. Last week, the Washington Post laid bare the awful details that occurred last fall. 4 students were sexually assaulted in a gang rape. 4 male students were assaulted. The most shocking detail was the deplorable manner in which the Montgomery County public school officials handled the situation. Mark, the Post followed up the original story several days later with an editorial taking the county to task. The headline read, "Damascus school officials must prove they care more about sexual assault than football." It's damning, yet there's no public outcry for culpability. Why not?
I really don't know, because this whole incident is extremely shocking, and the lack of response to it afterwards is even more shocking, because it suggests that it can happen again, that public officials aren't really doing what they ought to do to address this. I think you're right. I mean, I think there's a top-down problem at MCPS, certainly in Damascus, but there really is a lack of leadership in responding to this. One of the allegations, it's not an allegation, I mean, it's a set of the facts, is that the public school officials delayed bringing in the police. Practice should be, when there's an allegation like this of sexual, there's an investigation, there are people who are qualified to do it. This whole case should have been turned over to them from the very beginning, and not have vice principals try and figure out what they're going to do because they're not qualified to do that.
This was a clear violation of policy. Principals are trained, advised. It is drummed into them that the first thing you do is call the police if there is a suspected sexual assault or rape of any kind of a violation of a sexual nature. They inexplicably did not do that.
Sean, the school system in Montgomery County gets 52% of the entire county budget. It is a behemoth. And why aren't our public officials in the county executive's office, in the county council, demanding from the county school board and the superintendent that they do something about these problems? This isn't the only incident. There are lots of incidents that are happening in our school system that are hidden and covered up because the officials think more about themselves than they do the students.
Well, I think it's clear Damascus school officials need to be held accountable. I mean, we have a lack of reporting. We had things that were brushed under the rug, and quite frankly, if it's this level of behavior, and some of the articles have talked about, former victims of assault continuing this culture, this is something that has gone on through administrations, and perhaps that's why we saw a hesitancy to report.
Elbridge, I want to go to you here. Okay. I got a question for you. This week, the MCPS issued, once again, another document about how to handle hazing incidents. This wasn't hazing. This was sexual assault. Why is MCPS continuing to try to cover their ass on this problem?
It's both. It's not just one or the other. It is both. That's A. But B, you're not hearing a great public outcry because the community in Damascus are trying to figure this out themselves. I agree with you with regard to there has to be some clear-cut measures that have to be done to protect our community and our students and our parents and the whole citizenry there. But in fact, because this has not just a one-time of an event, but may have gone on for a longer period of time, they're trying to figure out how, in fact, they approach this thing and how they handle it. It is very sensitive, and so it will stay out of, the community is saying, we will work with this with the police.
Casey Krause, the principal, asked, what will the football impact be? That is disgraceful.
That's the MCPS problem. The community of those students and the people that live there, that's another problem. And that community is trying to address that. MCPS should do a better job. Make no mistake about it, but that community needs to be protected and needs to heal.
When we come back from this short break, what's going to happen in the final rush during the legislative session? Stay tuned. Welcome back. Mark, will the House of Delegates and the Senate be able to reach a compromise on the one top issue that was their priority that hasn't been resolved yet? Prescription drug costs.
Probably not. There's only at this point about 3 days left. The last time, and the bills, House, Senate, are quite different. Last time the Maryland legislature tried to address the prescription drug issue, they got it all wrong. 2017, they did one on generic drugs. It got thrown out by the federal courts. So I would advise them to do a little bit more circumspect, rather than trying to do this at the last minute and cobble together two very different bills.
Thank you. Now, Elbridge, back in the 90s, Speaker of the House Jim Wright allegedly wrote a book, and all of his union buddies bought it. And actually, it ended up bringing him down as Speaker of the House of Representatives. Now, up in Baltimore, Catherine Pugh is taking a leave of absence because of a similar book deal.
No, she took a leave of absence because of some health concerns.
Yeah, that's right. She has health. She's got writer's cramp, I would say. She's got writer's cramp in her hand. So tell me about this. What's going on up there?
To be honest with you, it's something that I tried to stay away from because there's no win to that situation. Catherine Pugh has done some good things since she's been there in Baltimore, and as a state senator, did some great things. We have better educational opportunities for people of color because of Catherine Pugh. Unfortunately, sometimes there are missteps, and if this is one of those, I prefer not to really delve into it because it is unfortunate for Baltimore and for
it's not
Catherine
just Catherine Pugh. As being revealed every day in the news, it's the entire University of Maryland medical system that's at play. There are insider deals. There are favored contracts. There's just a lot of corruption that's going on there.
It is Baltimore now.
Oh, okay. So that makes it right?
No. Right nor understood. But bottom line, as we've been saying here, this is a new day. And everybody needs to come
Well, we'll have to see what transpires out of this situation. Cynthia, it looks like the Kerwin bill, and you ought to be happy about this, will be amended, and this will mean more education funds, $700 million more. And let's see what MCPS does with that money when they get it.
Well, let's talk about the priority areas, which are very, very important for Maryland. First and foremost is early development and education, which is huge. Also, teacher raises. We're talking about a match between state and local jurisdictions for teachers, as well as hopefully school psychologists and social workers. We're talking about improving teacher training standards. And so all of those things will help with the better foundation for the future of public education in Maryland. And it could be up to over $1 billion if there are some abilities to get some more online taxes, and who knows, recreational marijuana might throw some money the education way.
Oh, well, good.
We'll see.
The magic bullet. Now that we're not taxing tobacco products anymore because nobody's smoking, I guess we have to look for another source of revenue.
It's vaping.
It's vaping.
Well, not till you're 21.
That's right.
Not until you're 21.
Yep.
Oh,
And
isn't
DC
that
as
awful?
well.
You can go to war, but you can't vape. What a dumb group of legislators we have. But Sean, Even these guys can't get out of their own way. They vetoed the $15 minimum, $15 per hour minimum wage bill, and already I'm hearing how people are going to evade this by hiring everybody as consultants instead of employees.
It's a problem. I think Maryland made a mistake by not taking a more regional approach to this. I mean, I think there are clear economic differences between Montgomery County and Eastern Shore, and the legislator, I think, should have taken regionalism into account in developing this stuff, and that's why we saw this pushback.
It's getting expensive everywhere. That's number one.
It is expensive.
Number two, there are labor laws and rules about consultancy, and you will try it, but you get caught, and there are penalties for that. And number three, rents are going up, food has been going up, and that $7 to $10 is not cutting.
And it's the market that'll solve it, not the legislature. Stay tuned when we come back from the short break for Parting Shots. Now with Parting Shots, Mark Uncapher.
Casey, when I first moved to Washington, I had never really experienced a spring. I grew up in upstate New York, and the period between summer and winter, there was something of a slush period of time. When I came to Washington, I experienced cherry blossoms and the blooms and the flowering trees. This is a time of year that is great to be in Washington and go out and see them all.
Thank you, Mark. Elbridge, your Parting Shot.
This week is one we celebrate with joy because the man lived and did great things. Unfortunately, he passed away or was assassinated this week, and that's the Honorable late Dr. Martin Luther King. We cherish the work he's done and like to have it continue to go forward.
Good thought, Elbridge. Thank you. Cynthia.
All right, kudos to a group of girls at Bethesda Chevy Chase High School who, when they found out they were ranked by level of attractiveness on some guy's idea of a good list to share over Snapchat, instead of becoming victimizers accusing the victims, they got them in a room and had a conversation with them to help them understand what it means to girls and to open their eyes and hopefully change that knuckle-headed impulse for that kind of behavior. So, way to go, girls.
Thank you, Cynthia. Sean Winkler, your Parting Shot.
I have a message to Baltimore City Council. In 2016, we had a historic wave of freshmen, ambitious legislators sweep to the City Council, and now is your opportunity to give Baltimore City a chance at new, fresh, and real leadership. Step up to the plate.
Thank you, Sean. Now, I always love it when there's a few extra seconds at the end of Parting Shots, so I can give my own Parting Shot. And this week it's to the students at George Washington University. Why don't you all just go home to mommy and daddy? Because you obviously don't know anything. You never learned your history when you were in grade school. The reason the George Washington Universities are called the colonials is because the colonists defeated England in the Revolutionary War. We're not being called, as Cynthia said, the George the Thirds, because if we hadn't been the colonists and defeated them, we'd still be subject to England. So all you students who are dumb and lazy and don't think for yourself, go home to mommy and daddy. Now, the other thing I wanted to talk about is the fact that the Montgomery County school system gets an inordinate amount of money from all of us. And the only thing that will keep that system honest is if we adopt school choice and allow more charter schools and allow vouchers. Next week, you're going to hear about school boundaries and how everybody's up in arms about school boundaries not wanting to change where they have bought their house. I remember when busing was an issue back in the 70s. It's terrible, it's divisive, and it's really a terrible thing to have to go through. But the only way to keep Montgomery County school system honest is if you give power back to the citizens by giving them a choice. Let them vote with their dollars. Let them vote with their vouchers where they want to send their schools, their children to school. That's my parting shot. I'm glad I had a couple of extra minutes tonight. I want to thank the panel for being here. I want to thank you, the audience, for tuning in each and every week to Montgomery County's hardest hitting political talk show. For 21 this week, I'm Casey Aiken.
That's what we call
Rabble.
yourself.